and I need to be in that space to create that content, to understand how I'm feeling there. I have that thing where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to put out one video, I want it to be the best in my eyes. Usually it happens when my dog is with me. So people come and they talk and they're like, oh wait, we know you. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, all thanks to the husky people
at least
coming towards me.
Yeah.
I've been a very social person in my life in general. When people were making babies, I made my baby cruising cravings.
Hello and welcome to the Social Kandura podcast. You're watching the Influencer Diaries, and we have someone that's very famous, very well known within the industry. She goes by the Instagram name of Cruising Cravings.
Yes.
And her actual name is Kaunain. So welcome Kaunain to the show.
Thank you so much.
It's an absolute pleasure having you over here.
It's a pleasure being here.
Perfect, very nice. And nice to finally meet you, I guess.
Yeah.
We've been on and off for a very while. It's nice to finally meet you. Welcome. And right off the back, love the content that you create.
Thank you so much.
And it's just so happens that, you know, every time we plan on going for a travel, your reel is just around the corner. We see it and we're like, oh, that's a travel inspiration. That's how we need to do it. And everything is so detailed, you know. It's not like just like, hey guys, I went for this trip, blah, 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 blah. No, everything is very detailed. What is that, you know, process in your head looks like when you start looking out, when you go out to create content? Do you keep a strategy in mind of, you know, I need to cover this, and I need to write about this, or does it just flow naturally? How does that usually happen?
So to be very honest with you, it literally flows naturally. I do not go very well planned. Like for me, in my head, I think that, okay, you know what, I need to go there and I need to be in that space to create that content, to understand how I'm feeling there and how you know, how the whole vibe is set. So for me, I think that if I plan too much and go, it usually doesn't work out for me. So I go there and I just do, and I just
you just do your thing,
and the thing just
and
I'm just like, okay, yeah, let's just go. But yeah, I mean, you did speak about detail. So I have that thing where I'm like, okay, if I'm going to put out one video, I want it to be the best in my eyes, where I feel like I'm content with it. And otherwise there's no point of putting out something, because
True.
I feel like whatever you put out there, you are representing yourself, you're representing your brand.
It's a part of who you are.
It's a part of who you are, so might as well
make it worthwhile for people to be watching it. And I think especially during lockdown and during COVID, you know, when a lot of people are not able to travel, all of these videos that were created beforehand sort of always became like a way out,
like
that, you know, virtual way of traveling it. But how did your journey start? What was, you know, how did you get started into travel vlogging as a whole? Because 5 years ago, and you've been around the block for a while, you're not new. So when you must have started, it was still a very unconventional route to take. So how did you start travel vlogging, and what was your, you know, story with that?
So I started in COVID. So when people were making babies, I made my baby cruising cravings. To be honest, how it really started was, I was almost that friend in that group. You know, people would be like, hey, where should we go? What should we eat? Like, okay, do you suggest? Because I was staying alone by myself during the whole COVID phase. So it actually started more with food blogging. Mm-hmm. So I started creating, and there was no formula where I'm like, okay, I need to become a blogger. But I always knew that I wanted to do something that impacts in some way, and I'm not just saying it, like I always had this vision that, okay, I want to create something of my own. It could be a product, it could be a service, and I had that as at the back of my mind, and it had nothing to do with blogging. Blogging, on the other hand, just happened to be out of passion of clicking photos. I used to have like thousands of pictures in my gallery, thousands of videos, whether I'm eating or I'm just on that trek or just walking, or the sunsets, the amount of sunset pictures I used to take. So I collected all of that. I'm like, okay, you know what, let me start like sharing this with my people, like my friends. So that circle of friends started growing, and it became a community, and it just eventually kept growing, and people kept finding it interesting or finding it helpful, and that's how it turned into content.
So it's picked up, and high quality, good
Yes.
content that you produce as well. Where are the benchmarks that you see yourself, like, because they say that content creators, we get better every video that we create,
Yeah.
and the same thing with us as well. Every podcast we do, we're trying to do that 1% better, 1% better. And how do you do that? How has that journey been? Like, when you look back on the first video you created versus today's video, do you see okay, Kaunain, we've come a long way? Or
Hell yes, we've come a long way. But yes, definitely. I think that for me, I'm at two different ends when I compare myself to where I was and where I am. But I also know that, okay, here where I am today is way far from where I want to be.
yes.
So I keep trying to take these small steps, even if it's a small edit in the video. That's still a growth for me. I have experimented.
Sure.
So I started at the end of the video, I started just adding a sticker that says follow. Before I used to write follow Cruising Cravings. Now I just
Yes.
put that sticker, and it does this jiggle thing. For me, that's
It's a new thing
It's
that
a
you-
new thing. So these small things that I incorporate is something that always reminds me that, okay, I'm getting better, and and I can still do more better. And yeah, I think it's been massive, and I have learned so much in the journey. I have picked up a lot from different creators, the way they shoot the angles, and the stabilization, the camera settings. So yeah, there's been a huge learning curve
and
that has happened.
and when it comes to feedback, because sometimes brands give you feedback, sometimes your friends give you
Yeah.
feedback, like, oh, you know what, Kaunain, I saw that reel, you did such a great job. How much does that really inspire you to be like, what, the small little thing that I did, people actually noticed it, I should do more of it? And something which is a longer question, but when you create, for example, a reel that's a minute long, in your head you're like, I know ye pura koi nahi dekhne wala hai. Like 50 seconds, 55 seconds, people will start dropping off. But when you see that people have watched everything till the end, and then they comment, oh, Kaunain, I saw that you did this, is a very great step. How important does that make you feel that, people actually watching what I'm producing end to end?
So this happened with me very recently, this exact scenario, because I was there one day editing a video and falling into the whole Instagram trap of having my reel between 18 to 20 seconds or at max 30 seconds.
Correct.
Otherwise, no way, it cannot go on Instagram. So I would keep posting, and there was this one video that I wanted to create, and that was my UAE road trip that I took.
Yes, that did really well as well.
Yes, and that is my first video that I have posted willingly, with a lot of stone or a rock on my heart, like maybe this will not do well, and that was 1 minute 12 seconds.
It doesn't feel like it's 1 minute 12 seconds.
Exactly.
Though. It's such a beautiful...
And that's what broke that whole Instagram algorithm that was in my head, where I'm like, yes, people do watch videos and you do get views when you post 13 seconds, 10 seconds, even 9 seconds video get million views. But what's the value it's adding to the person who's watching it?
Correct.
So if someone has watched that video for me, and that video has hit 1 million views as well. So I know that people have watched it till the end, because those are 7 Emirates and they want to know about
All
each
7.
Emirate. So they watched, and people have come to me and been like, oh, that's so cool. We've lived here all our life and we do these things on a daily basis, but the way you showed it, it just felt like made us feel so connected to Dubai and to
I
UAE
think
in
that is a
general.
very interesting feedback that comes back, that motivates you that, okay, what, I can do more of these things as well.
So that's when I thought that content quality is very, very important. The content that you put in is very important than running behind these
Metrics
numbers
of numbers,
and
yeah.
metrics. Yeah.
So at the moment you're doing this full time?
Yes.
Oh, that's a very interesting thing and a very brave step as well. You've been invited to a lot of these shows, you've been invited to a lot of these, platforms and everything else. When you were first starting off, did you ever envision that, you know what, 6 months down the line, 2 years down the line, people are going to be calling me to give talks because, you know, you were on the Nasteli summit and all of those things, and, you know, with big people. Did you have that vision that, you know, I want to be recognized that place, or that was also like a byproduct of?
No, absolutely, I had that vision. I always, because like I said, I wanted to do something of my own, you know, have some product, service, or something that I could be like, maybe this is what I can call mine.
It's mine, yeah.
It's mine.
Yeah.
And then when I got into content creation, and when both of these things happened to become one, I had this vision, and I was like, one day I want to, you know, I love talking, I love preaching, I love it. So I love sharing my knowledge. So I've always had that vision that, okay, one day it's gonna start with this and that, and then TED Talk.
Okay, getting there, almost there.
Hopefully.
Do your friends still see you the same way, or have they changed?
No, absolutely. All my friends, my closest friends, are everyone who is not on Instagram. I mean, they are on Instagram, but they're not like content creators.
Yeah.
I've been a very social person in my life in general. So I've made a lot of friends anywhere I go, wherever, whichever place I've lived in, or any job or anything. I've made a lot of friends, and I'm a very open book with them. So yeah, I mean, they are also very supportive, and yeah.
That's amazing. And you know, when you look back at the days, how much has content creation changed from when you started versus what's happening now? Because now brands have, for example, a dedicated budget which is allocated to influencer marketing. How has that radical shift been? We've seen industry move from that perspective. How has that shift been?
So I used to work in the corporate, like proper corporate, and when I right after COVID, like 1 year after COVID, I started working in an influencer marketing agency, and I got the biggest shock of my life, seeing that really is this real? Influencers get paid, and I think just hitting 7,000, 8,000 followers, and I'm like, okay, I didn't know like people get paid so much. So yes, there has been a massive shift, and that time to be surprised and now to expect like, yeah, obviously we should get paid for the efforts. That mentality has made me realize that there has been a massive change. In fact, last night I was reading this article on one of the media platforms, and the studies this year showed that 76.9% of brands think of influencer marketing as their topmost priority over any other platforms or any other billboards, outdoor TV, or anything.
So it's like the pyramid is reversed.
So it has completely, changed, and I think that's great because you get to read. There are so many benefits of working with content creators.
And also the fact that because these content creators have such a loyal following, anything that you go out there, that definitely converts from that perspective as well. But you're split between photos, videos, and reels. How do you work around that? Or is it like, I'll post a reel one day, I'll post a photo one day, and I'll post a story? Or is it just like whatever gets edited first, that goes out? Because a lot of content creators have like a strategy, I'll post a picture today, do you do that? Or are you blessed with an audience that will just watch your content whenever you post it?
So I think, touch wood, like I just post what I feel like. In terms of reels or stories or posts. So what I'm feeling, I just post like, okay, maybe I don't have time to edit a reel and I'm out moving around, then I'll just probably share a picture. But I'm trying to change that, and I understand the importance of building a brand and like stepping into different platforms. I realize that I can't just go on my gut feeling or my availability or anything. So I need to strategize it just in terms of like what goes out when, so that it really helps, and it's more streamlined. Now I started realizing that recently, because in travel you can't post Dubai one day, India one day, and
exactly my point,
right? So when I just went to India and I explored like around 6 cities. So I'm like, okay,
You have
I
your
can't.
content, yeah.
Yeah, I can't just come and post Delhi and then like Dubai and then this. So I need to like strategize it so that my audience, when they come to my page, they can see what they can find what they're looking for. So yeah, and I also started trying to even write on LinkedIn.
Yes,
So
that's a
LinkedIn
very big
is
platform as well.
yes. So not a lot of people think of that, but yeah, I've started writing on LinkedIn. So I realized that okay, if I want to write, put on YouTube, put on LinkedIn, put on Instagram, then I need to have a strategy.
Some sort of a strategy,
Yeah.
100%.
So yeah.
And of course, when was that first moment that a brand reached out to you? Because when you used to work at the influence agency, you knew that okay, brands would work with influencers.
Yeah.
But when was that moment that so you got a DM, you're like, hey, do you want to collaborate with us? What's the pricing looking like, etc. When was that first moment, and which was the first brand, if you don't mind sharing?
So in Barter, I still remember it was a cafe which is now closed, but
Okay.
it was a cafe for having those like Nutella crepes and
Uh-huh.
waffles.
Okay,
And
okay.
like Nutella milkshake, Kinder Joy,
Yes,
and all
yes,
of
yes,
that.
yeah.
So that was a cafe, and I was so excited because I had just come from India, and it was like just after COVID, and I only had 2,000 followers. So I was like, "What, me, really?" And I went there, and it was like pehli bar, like zindagi mein you've had free food.
Exactly.
You go
Like, where's
there
the
and
bill?
you're
It's like, no, madam, the bill isn't like, oh, are you sure?
So
Yeah.
that was my first experience where I went to have free food, and that was very exciting. It was a lot of desserts. And my first paid was with this Apple company. And that was actually a good amount. I got 2,000 dirhams.
That's a very-
which was
yeah, that's
very nice.
beautiful.
And I was I had just hit 10K. So it was around that time, yeah. Just hit 10K, and I had a whole thing.
Have you ever had that? I'm sure you have, but how many times have you had that moment where people recognize you in public and they're like, oh, you're Cruising Cravings? Very few people know your name.
Yeah.
Everybody
Very
knows
few
just your
people.
Instagram handle. They're
Yeah,
like,
no.
oh, Cruising Cravings, how are you? How are you? Has that happened to you? How often does that happen?
It has happened, and it happened with me when I was on my UAE road trip journey. So it happened on Jabal Jais mountain.
Wow.
And we were like there overnight. And usually it happens when my dog is with me. So people come and they talk, and they're
They're
like,
like-
oh wait, we know you. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, all thanks to the husky people
That
are
people at least know you, yeah.
coming towards me.
Yeah.
But recently, like last time it happened was I went to watch a movie, and there was a seat right next to me. So I went, I sat on that seat, and someone sitting next, they're just staring at me like,
Who's this
you
girl?
are
I know.
Cruising Cravings, right? And that moment for me, I'm like, the probability
Of
that
just for them to be so
me.
sure, yeah.
No, the probability of me sitting next to someone who follows me
Yes,
on Instagram,
it's
that was very sweet, like
Interesting.
nice.
And how did you come up with the name? I know Cruising Cravings roughly like travel and food.
I didn't come up with the name.
Okay, how did that happen?
So, but I had a very particular thing in mind, that I wanted something that rhymes, or something that has like that, CC or AA, something with, I forgot
Yeah.
the English term for it.
Something
But
it's
you
called,
get
yeah,
it,
yeah. It's
right?
like for people to remember it easier.
Yeah, like CR. So
Yeah.
I wanted something like that, but I always knew whatever name I pick for the for my page has to sound like a brand to me. At some point in life, in the future, whenever I want it to be a brand, it should sound like a brand. I didn't want to
Right.
make a personal blog out of
Sure.
it.
So you have that, yeah, amazing.
So yeah, and Cruising Cravings of food and travel just happened to
Be the most
be-
interesting things as
yeah.
well. Thank you so much for spending so much time and so much insights that we got about, when we see you on Instagram, we're like, yeah, I know that guy, but speaking to you and understanding all of those things really gives a lot of insights of who you are as a person in general. Just before I let you go, a lot of younger people, who are just getting out of college, people who are just, that they're taking content creation really seriously. What's your key message to these people? Because a lot of people look up to you, a lot of people see your content and they're like, मुझे ऐसा करना है. I'm sure after your UAE road trip, a lot of content creators must have done a UAE road trip just to make a video like you did. we've seen that has happened. People
Oh,
have gone,
really?
yes, we know that they are inspired by you and they've done it. What's your key message, to those people?
I think the first thing, for any budding content creator, very important is to have discipline in your life, in your everything, because when you're creating content, you should have your objectives clear. Are you doing it for fun, or do you want to build something? And accordingly work on that plan, and be very consistent about
Yeah.
it as well. Not about posting, consistent about your goals, that okay, I need to do this and I need to achieve it. And just have a very disciplined mindset, that you need to be more you need to feel responsible towards
For
your
what you're
blog,
doing, yeah.
for what you're doing.
Exactly.
And that's the main thing, like just these three things that I feel are
Perfect.
my takeaways.
Thank you so much for coming to our podcast.
so
It was great to see you. All the very best. 100K
you.
very soon. And
Oh yes, yay.
thank you so much. See you
Thank you
see you
so
out
much.
there.